My boss fired me to cut costs. He didn't read my contract. When my boss fired me to cut costs, he never imagined that the main character of our multi-million-dollar game belonged to me, not the company. My name is Maya, and I'm 32 years old. For the past 5 years, I had been living my dream as the lead character designer at Pixel Forge Studios, one of the fastest-growing game development companies in the industry. The game I had poured my heart and soul into, Chronicles of Etheria, had become a cultural phenomenon, selling over 10 million copies worldwide and generating hundreds of millions in revenue. The main character, Lyra, was my creation from concept to completion. I had spent countless nights refining her appearance, personality, and backstory. She had become an icon in the gaming community, with cosplayers recreating her distinctive look at conventions worldwide and fan art flooding social media platforms. Lyra's signature purple hair, intricate armor design, and mysterious past had captivated players, making her one of the most recognizable characters in modern gaming. Everything changed when Marcus Henderson, a corporate executive known for his ruthless cost-cutting measures, was appointed as the new CEO of Pixel Forge. Marcus had previously worked at a financial firm and had no background in game development or creative industries. Within weeks of his arrival, he began implementing sweeping changes, focusing solely on maximizing short-term profits rather than nurturing the creative talent that had made the company successful. I first sensed trouble when Marcus called a meeting with the creative team. As he walked into the conference room, his expensive suit and polished shoes seemed out of place among the casual attire of the designers and artists. He didn't even bother to learn our names, referring to us by our job titles instead. During the meeting, Marcus scrolled through slides filled with charts and graphs, barely glancing at the concept art we had prepared. When I began presenting my vision for the upcoming expansion pack featuring new adventures for Lyra, he interrupted me mid-sentence. "This character design work is frivolous," Marcus said, waving his hand dismissively at my presentation. "We need to focus on monetization strategies and cutting unnecessary expenses. The art department budget is being reduced by 40% effective immediately." The room fell silent as we exchanged worried glances. I tried to explain how character development was crucial to player engagement and long-term success, but Marcus wasn't interested. He ended the meeting abruptly, leaving us stunned and demoralized. 2 weeks later, I was called into Marcus's office. The termination letter was already printed and waiting on his desk when I arrived. He didn't even look at me as he explained that my position was being eliminated as part of a corporate restructuring. "We found a team in Eastern Europe that can produce character designs at a fraction of the cost," Marcus said, still typing on his laptop. "Your services are no longer required. Security will escort you out after you've collected your personal belongings." As I gathered my belongings from my office, I noticed something that made me pause. On the community bulletin board was a promotional poster for the upcoming Chronicles of Etheria movie adaptation, with Lyra prominently featured. The poster was part of a massive multi-million-dollar marketing campaign that Pixel Forge had recently launched in partnership with a major Hollywood studio. I left the building that day with a box of my belongings and a heavy heart, but little did Marcus know that his decision to fire me would soon become the costliest mistake in Pixel Forge's history. The first few weeks after being fired were difficult. I felt lost without the routine that had defined my life for half a decade. Gaming forums and social media were buzzing with speculation about my sudden departure from Pixel Forge, with many fans expressing concern about the future of Lyra and the Chronicles of Etheria franchise. During this time, I received numerous job offers from competing game studios, all eager to capitalize on my success with Lyra. But before making any decisions, I needed to sort through the legal and financial aspects of my termination. One rainy afternoon, as I was organizing my files, I came across the original employment contract I had signed when I joined Pixel Forge 5 years ago. As I read through the document, a particular clause caught my attention, one that I had negotiated carefully when I was first hired. According to Section 7.3 of my contract, I retained intellectual property rights to any original character designs I created during my employment, unless explicitly transferred in writing to the company. When I had first proposed Lyra's character concept, the company had been in a precarious financial position, and they had agreed to this unusual arrangement to secure my talents without offering a competitive salary. The implications of this clause were staggering. While Pixel Forge owned the rights to the game itself, including the code, levels, and gameplay mechanics, I owned the rights to Lyra's character design, backstory, and visual appearance. This meant that the company couldn't use Lyra in any future games, merchandise, or adaptations without my permission. I remembered that during my tenure, I had never signed any additional agreements transferring these rights. In their haste to capitalize on Lyra's popularity, the company had apparently forgotten about this crucial detail in my contract. The discovery sent a surge of adrenaline through me. I immediately called my friend Rachel, who worked as an intellectual property lawyer. After explaining the situation, she agreed to review my contract and the related documents. Rachel confirmed my suspicions. Based on the contract and the lack of any subsequent IP transfer agreements, I was indeed the legal owner of Lyra's character design. This meant that Pixel Forge's multi-million-dollar marketing campaign for the upcoming movie adaptation, their merchandise deals, and their plans for future sequels were all built on intellectual property they didn't actually own. "Maya, this is incredible," Rachel said over the phone, her voice filled with excitement. "The company has invested millions in promoting a character they don't have the rights to use. Their entire marketing campaign for the movie adaptation could be considered intellectual property theft." The weight of this realization settled upon me. I had the power to potentially halt the movie production, force the company to renegotiate their merchandising deals, and even demand compensation for the unauthorized use of my intellectual property. As I sat in my small apartment, surrounded by sketches and concept art of Lyra, I knew that my next decision would not only affect my future, but potentially the future of Pixel Forge Studios as well. The company had treated me as disposable, but they had underestimated the value of what I had created. The following morning, I scheduled a meeting with Rachel to discuss our legal options. We met at a quiet cafe downtown, away from the prying eyes of the gaming industry. Rachel had already prepared a preliminary analysis of my case, complete with precedents and potential strategies. "First, we need to establish a paper trail," Rachel explained, spreading documents across the table. "We'll send a formal cease and desist letter to Pixel Forge, notifying them of the IP infringement and demanding they halt all use of Lyra's character design until we can negotiate a licensing agreement." I nodded, studying the documents Rachel had prepared. The legal strategy seemed sound, but I was concerned about the potential consequences. The gaming industry was relatively small, and taking legal action against a major studio could impact my future career prospects. "There's another option to consider," Rachel continued, sensing my hesitation. "We could approach them privately first, giving them an opportunity to settle this matter without public litigation. This might preserve your reputation in the industry while still protecting your rights." After careful consideration, we decided on a two-pronged approach. Rachel would send an initial letter requesting a meeting to discuss the IP ownership issue, giving Pixel Forge an opportunity to resolve the matter amicably. If they refused or were uncooperative, we would proceed with formal legal action. 3 days later, Rachel sent the letter to Pixel Forge's legal department. The response came quicker than we expected. Marcus Henderson himself called Rachel directly, his tone initially dismissive until Rachel explained the specifics of my contract. The meeting was scheduled for the following week at Pixel Forge headquarters. As I walked into the building where I had spent countless hours creating Lyra, I felt a mix of emotions: nostalgia for the creative environment I had once loved, and determination to stand up for my rights. Marcus was waiting in the same conference room where he had announced the budget cuts. This time, however, he was accompanied by the company's legal counsel, a stern-looking woman in her 50s who introduced herself as Barbara Winters. "Maya, thank you for coming," Marcus began, his attempt at a friendly tone falling flat. "We've reviewed your contract, and while there appears to be some ambiguity regarding character IP rights, we believe that your work was created as part of your employment duties, making it company property." Barbara nodded in agreement, opening a file filled with legal documents. "We've prepared a settlement offer that we believe is more than fair. We're willing to offer you $50,000 as compensation for any confusion regarding the IP rights." I couldn't help but laugh at the insulting offer. $50,000 for a character that had generated hundreds of millions in revenue? It was clear they still didn't understand the value of what I had created. Rachel stepped in before I could respond. "With all due respect, that offer is inadequate. My client owns the intellectual property rights to Lyra, a character that has become the face of your most successful franchise. We're not discussing a minor character, but the protagonist of your upcoming movie adaptation and the centerpiece of your multi-million-dollar marketing campaign." The meeting continued for another hour, with Marcus growing increasingly frustrated as he realized the severity of the situation. His cost-cutting measures had backfired spectacularly, and now the company was facing a potential legal crisis that could derail their most profitable franchise. As we left the meeting, Marcus called after me, his tone now desperate. "Maya, wait, we need to resolve this. What do you want?" I turned back to face him, a smile playing on my lips. "I want what was always mine, recognition for my work and fair compensation for the value I've created." The days following the meeting were tense. Pixel Forge's legal team requested additional time to review their position, which Rachel and I granted, knowing that the longer this situation remained unresolved, the more pressure the company would face as the movie premiere approached. During this period, I decided to reconnect with my former colleagues at Pixel Forge. Many of them had reached out to express their support, sharing stories of how Marcus's cost-cutting measures had affected their work and morale. Through these conversations, I learned that the company had been struggling to maintain the quality of their character designs since my departure, with the outsourced team producing work that lacked the depth and originality that had made Chronicles of Etheria special. I also discovered that several key members of the original development team had left the company, frustrated by Marcus's management style and his disregard for the creative process. This exodus of talent was beginning to affect not just the Chronicles of Etheria franchise, but other projects in development as well. 2 weeks after our initial meeting, we received another call from Barbara Winters, requesting a follow-up meeting. This time, the atmosphere in the conference room was markedly different. Marcus was accompanied not just by Barbara, but also by 2 members of the company's board of directors who had apparently been alerted to the potential crisis. "Maya, we've conducted a thorough review of your contract and our IP policies," one of the board members began, his tone conciliatory. "We acknowledge that there was an oversight regarding the ownership of Lyra's character design, and we'd like to propose a new offer." The revised offer was significantly better than their initial attempt, a one-time payment of $2 million in exchange for full ownership of Lyra's IP rights. While this was a substantial improvement, Rachel and I had done our research, estimating that the character's IP value was likely much higher, especially considering the upcoming movie adaptation and merchandising deals. "We appreciate the improved offer," Rachel responded, "but given the projected revenue from the movie adaptation, merchandise sales, and future sequels, we believe this still undervalues my client's contribution to the franchise." Marcus, who had been silent for most of the meeting, finally spoke up. "What exactly do you want, Maya? We've made a generous offer. Are you trying to ruin the company out of spite?" His accusation hung in the air, but I remained calm. "This was never about spite, Marcus. It's about recognition and fair compensation for work that I created and legally own. You fired me because you considered my work frivolous, yet your company has built a multi-million-dollar campaign around a character you don't even own the rights to." The meeting ended without an agreement, but it was clear that Pixel Forge was growing increasingly desperate. The movie premiere was scheduled for the following month, and the marketing campaign was already in full swing. The longer this situation remained unresolved, the more costly it would become for the company. As Rachel and I left the building, we discussed our next steps. We had prepared a draft of the cease and desist letter, ready to be sent if negotiations failed. We had also reached out to entertainment journalists, offering them an exclusive story if this matter couldn't be resolved amicably. The gaming industry was watching closely, with many developers and artists expressing support for my position. The hashtag #RespectCreators had started trending on social media, with fans and industry professionals alike discussing the importance of protecting creative talent and intellectual property rights. Pixel Forge was caught in a trap of their own making. Their cost-cutting measures had led them to dismiss the very talent that had made them successful, and now they faced the consequences of underestimating the value of creative work. As negotiations with Pixel Forge continued to stall, I found myself reflecting on my journey as a game designer. I had always been passionate about art and storytelling, even as a child growing up in a small town where creative careers were often dismissed as impractical. My parents had encouraged me to pursue a more stable profession, but I had followed my dreams, studying digital arts and game design in college. My first job in the industry had been at a small indie studio, where I worked long hours for modest pay. It was there that I first developed the concept for Lyra, drawing inspiration from mythology, fantasy literature, and my own experiences as a woman in a male-dominated field. When Pixel Forge had recruited me, I had seen it as an opportunity to bring my vision to a larger audience. Creating Lyra had been a deeply personal process. I had infused her with qualities I admired: resilience, intelligence, and compassion, while also giving her flaws and vulnerabilities that made her relatable. Her distinctive appearance, with her flowing purple hair and intricate armor, was designed to be both aesthetically striking and practical for combat. Her backstory, revealed gradually throughout the game, added depth and motivation to her actions. The character had resonated with players in ways I hadn't anticipated. I had received countless messages from fans, many of them young women, who saw Lyra as a role model. They appreciated that she was strong and capable without being sexualized, intelligent without being condescending, and vulnerable without being weak. She had become more than just a game character. She was a symbol of representation in gaming. As these memories flooded my mind, I realized that my fight with Pixel Forge was about more than just intellectual property rights. It was about respecting the creative process and valuing the contributions of artists and designers in an industry that often prioritized profits over people. The following week, Rachel received an urgent call from Pixel Forge's legal team. The movie premiere was just 3 weeks away, and the studio was facing increasing pressure from their distribution partner, who had become aware of the IP dispute. The board of directors had authorized a final offer, and they requested one last meeting. This time, we met at a neutral location, a law office downtown. Marcus was present, along with Barbara Winters and 3 board members, including the company's chairman. The atmosphere was tense but professional. The chairman, a distinguished-looking man in his 60s, began the meeting. "Maya, we want to apologize for how this situation has been handled. Marcus's cost-cutting measures, while well-intentioned, were implemented without proper consideration for the creative aspects of our business. We now recognize the value of your contribution to the company's success." He paused, looking directly at me. "We've prepared a new offer that we hope you'll find acceptable. We're proposing a payment of $10 million for full ownership of Lyra's IP rights, plus a 5% royalty on all future revenue generated by the character, including game sales, movie adaptations, and merchandise." Rachel and I exchanged glances. This was a significant improvement, reflecting a genuine recognition of Lyra's value to the company. However, there was still one aspect that concerned me: the creative control of the character going forward. "We appreciate the generous financial offer," I responded, "but I have one condition. I want to be retained as a creative consultant for all future projects involving Lyra, with final approval on any significant changes to her character design or backstory." The board members conferred briefly, whispering among themselves. After a few moments, the chairman nodded. "We can agree to that. We value your creative vision and believe that your continued involvement will benefit the franchise." With that, we had reached an agreement. The terms were formalized in a contract that both parties signed, bringing an end to the dispute that had threatened to derail Pixel Forge's most valuable franchise. As I left the law office, I felt a sense of closure. What had begun as a painful dismissal had evolved into a recognition of my worth as a creator. The journey had been challenging, but it had also been empowering, reaffirming the importance of standing up for one's rights and valuing creative work. The finalization of the agreement with Pixel Forge marked the beginning of a new chapter in my life. The $10 million payment provided financial security that I had never imagined, but more importantly, the 5% royalty and creative consultant position ensured that I would continue to be involved with Lyra's development for years to come. The news of our settlement quickly spread throughout the gaming industry. Many viewed it as a landmark case that highlighted the importance of clear intellectual property agreements and fair compensation for creative talent. Several game development studios announced changes to their IP policies, ensuring that artists and designers received proper recognition and compensation for their contributions. For Pixel Forge, the resolution of the dispute came just in time. With the movie premiere approaching, they were able to move forward with their marketing campaign without the threat of legal action hanging over them. Marcus Henderson, however, did not fare as well. The board of directors, recognizing that his cost-cutting measures had nearly cost the company its most valuable franchise, decided to replace him with a new CEO who had a background in game development. The movie adaptation of Chronicles of Etheria premiered to critical acclaim, with many reviewers praising the faithful representation of Lyra's character. I attended the premiere as a guest of honor, sitting alongside the cast and crew. As I watched the character I had created come to life on the big screen, I felt a sense of pride and accomplishment that went beyond the financial aspects of our settlement. In the months that followed, I established my own game development studio, focusing on creating innovative games with strong character development and compelling narratives. Many of my former colleagues from Pixel Forge joined me, drawn by the opportunity to work in an environment that valued creativity and collaboration. Our first project, a new intellectual property called Echoes of Eternity, was announced at the annual gaming convention to great anticipation. During the presentation, I took the opportunity to address the audience, not just about our new game, but about the importance of respecting creative talent in the industry. "The characters we create are more than just assets on a balance sheet," I told the crowd. "They are expressions of our imagination, our experiences, and our values." When we recognize and respect the creative process, we not only produce better games, but we build a more sustainable and equitable industry for everyone. The speech was met with applause, and afterward, I was approached by numerous young designers and artists who thanked me for taking a stand. It was then that I realized that my journey had impacted not just my own career, but potentially the careers of countless others in the industry. Looking back on the events that had unfolded since my dismissal from Pixel Forge, I recognized that what had initially felt like a setback had actually been an opportunity to redefine my relationship with my creative work, to establish my value in the industry, and to pave the way for greater recognition of artists and designers. As I stood on the convention stage, looking out at the diverse crowd of gamers, developers, and industry professionals, I felt a sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought me to this moment. The character of Lyra had not only been my creation, but had become a part of me, a symbol of resilience, creativity, and the enduring power of storytelling. In the end, Marcus's decision to fire me to cut costs had backfired spectacularly, not just financially, but in ways that would shape the future of Pixel Forge and the gaming industry as a whole. He had dismissed my work as frivolous, but in doing so, he had underestimated the value of creativity and the importance of respecting the artists and designers who bring imaginary worlds to life. As I looked toward the future, I knew that my journey was far from over. With my own studio and the freedom to create on my own terms, I was excited about the stories I would tell and the characters I would bring to life. And as I thought about the young designers and artists who looked up to me, I hoped that my experience would inspire their own creative contributions and to never underestimate the worth of their imagination.